Getting ready for another warm front with rain and thunderstorms. Maybe a couple of them might be strong enough that they'll label them severe, and also the potential for flash flooding. And that's just between now and tomorrow morning. We have hot weather across the south, some changes coming for the middle and latter part of the week, which we'll get into. We'll talk about all sorts of things tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Monday, the 14th of August, 2023, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Your go-to place to make sure your yard looks great. Back up the truck for mulch, topsoil, sand over the winter. Get some salt, and of course, get whatever you need to prepare in case we get a tropical storm or hurricane this hurricane season. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. For all of you out there who don't have a weather station, this is the one to get because it's really easy to set up. Even I did it I didn't even cuss while I was doing it. That's how easy it was. You mount it outside, you monitor it on your mobile device, and you're all set to go. So get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you do make any purchase on the Tempest Weatherflow website, be it this or any of the other weather gadgets and gizmos they have, use the coupon code I want a weather station. And if you do, Joe Rayo will tell us what you'll get. Joe.
10%, not 9 or 11, but 10% off anything that you purchase from Tempest. So that's a heck of a good deal.
Yes, it is. So my streak of doing things before the Weather Service does them, or trying to anticipate what they're going to do, continues today, Joe. This was a double whammy. So I cut my Weather in 5 video, and I did this around, I guess it was around 3:30 or so, and I sit here waiting for the afternoon forecast to go up. Nothing. So I cut the video. I post the video, and I get a message from somebody saying flood watches are posted. Okay, so there's that. So on my subscription site, which is at patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Cioffi, for those of you who might be interested. I go on my subscription site, and what I do is I post the video, and then I write a little dissertation about what's going on, because some people don't like to look at videos for too long, and they would rather read it. So I added that to that concept, and in there I wrote, well, they've got flood watches up for Northeast New Jersey, New York City, the Hudson Valley, Connecticut, Long Island, and so on, and you'll probably see more flood watches go up tonight. No sooner that I hit the post button, I get another message from Timothy Veltman, who's usually one of our regulars, but he's been busy working. I get a message from him saying, flood watches are up now for all of all of Pennsylvania, all of Eastern Pennsylvania, all of New Jersey, upstate New York. It's like, yeah, naturally they wait for me. I know I tease about the fact that they watch our show almost continuously. Well, maybe that was one of those moments that they didn't watch, one of those moments that was not continuous. They took a bathroom break and sent out the forecast. So anyway, we got some rain, another one of these warm fronts, and that's coming up. What is this, like the third or fourth one that we've had in the last month? I've lost track. Yeah, and these warm fronts, especially at this time of year, these warm fronts can be pretty potent and have a tendency to outperform in terms of rainfall. I'm wondering whether this is going to be one of them as it moves northward. I kind of went on. The Weather Service is going for up to a couple of inches of rain tonight, and I think that makes sense. I'm just wondering whether there's going to be maybe a couple of severe storms in the mix too as it lifts up northeast. Maybe they'll put up a severe thunderstorm watch at night, which they rarely do. For this area anyway.
I tell you, and this has happened a few times over the last 5 or 6 years that they have put up severe weather watches, thunderstorm, even a tornado watch. I remember on one particular occasion. Now, prior to 2016, if I were in bed, it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hear lots of rumbling outside. I'd reach for the TV remote, and I'd flick on channel 61, which was the traffic and weather channel, which I might add, I spent a good deal of time with the News 12 hierarchy, the corporate suits. We specifically designed it in such a way so that you got 2 minutes of traffic, 15 seconds of a promo. And actually, at one time, Joe, we had Robert Klein, the comedian, do a 15-second promo specifically for us saying, "Hi, I'm Robert Klein, and you're watching the News 12 Traffic and Weather Channel." Then he would go into a little song, "And the weather outside is frightful." It was very funny, but you had 15 seconds, and then boom, you're getting right to weather after you had your 2 minutes of traffic, 2 minutes of weather. Then you'd have another little promo and then go back. It went like that, back and forth, 24/7.
Right.
And it was so effective because when you turned on channel 61 at any hour of the day or night, you knew that you were going to see within 2 minutes, at no more than 2 minutes, you were going to see the latest radar, the latest update on advisories, watches, warnings, the latest forecast discussion. You had everything within 2 minutes time. And in fact, at one time, we outdid the Weather Channel. Traffic and Weather News 12 was 61, channel 61 on Optimum. Channel 62 was the Weather Channel. And one day, Norm Fine, you remember good old Norm,
I do.
called the meeting of the meteorologists, and he said, "Well, you know, I have some good news. Your Traffic and Weather Channel, the Traffic and Weather Channel is outdoing the Weather Channel by a ratio of 3-1. And there was good reason. When you watch the Weather Channel, sometimes you'd see a documentary on a tornado that hit 50 years ago, or sometimes you'd get traffic and you'd get weather and your health, or something stupid like that. Meanwhile, if you went to channel 61, our channel, you knew that you were going to get the very latest updated forecast. As I said, this was up until 2016. Then, of course, the overall Cablevision, everything changed hands, and it went to this new company, Altice. And what did they do? They took the Traffic and Weather Channel. They stuck in like 4 and 5 minute promos in it, and at midnight, it becomes an infomercial station for 6 hours from midnight to 6 a.m. And so on this occasion, when here's the lightning, here's the thunder, I'm saying, what the hell's going on out there? Let me take a look at the latest radar. Flicked on the TV, went to 61, and instead of seeing a radar within 2 minutes or less, or a discussion as to what the heck is going on out there, from my bedroom, what do I see? I see Chef Tony chopping up with a knife and demonstrating this Vegematic or something like that. I was like, what the hell's going on here? And, so much for that. So I'm sorry to vent, but we spent so much time, at least when I was there, developing the Traffic and Weather Channel and making it good. And when we had situations like what I just described, you knew that you were going to get your latest forecast. And no more. So if tonight, as you suggest, Joe, we do go under some kind of a weather advisory or weather watch for severe weather, don't turn on channel 61, because all you're going to see is some guy chopping onions or something, or some other stupidity.
Well, for those that are outside that your area, that because we do have people that watch from places other than
yes,
Putnam Valley,
right,
and have access to Optimum. They might be on Comcast, so they have to look at all this stuff. I could tell you this: if you get thunderstorms at 3 o'clock in the morning, we won't be going live. All right, we will not be going live. I guarantee you.
First of all, we're not going live, probably because I'm going to lose power.
Right.
My power company, you can blow on their power lines, and boom, you're down. You can even blow on them even when we don't have any severe weather. I've had the last couple of days, I've had power hits for 10, 15 seconds, just enough to screw all the clocks in the house. And of course, my computer, my PC is on standby. Incidentally, Incidentally, I'm attributing these power hits to another problem. And maybe somebody on the chat board knows what to do with this. I cannot print anymore, Joe, in color. I mean, if I get a JPEG, for example, of a picture of something, and I try printing it on my printer, it comes out in black and white, and I have absolutely no clue why that is.
Do you have color ink in there?
Oh yes, I have plenty of color ink, and in fact, if I make a direct copy, if I make like a Xerox copy of something in color or whatever, yeah, it'll come out in color. But when I'm doing it through the computer to get something printed, a JPEG or any other thing that's in color, when I print it, it comes out in black and white. And I have no clue. I've gone through all of the machinations here. I'm waiting for my daughter on Wednesday
she'll fix it.
She'll fix it. But if anybody out there on the chat board knows what might have happened to my computer to make it go suddenly from color to black and white.
Maybe you lost a driver or something.
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, enough with my problems.
Yes, and there were quite a few of them, I might add.
Yes.
All right, so why don't we do some weather here, and we could take a look at the watches that are up, because there are a few of them, and they are centered on the idea that this warm front is going to cause some hefty rainfalls tonight in some places, and we do have flood watches up for Connecticut, Rhode Island, Long Island, the whole Hudson Valley up to about Albany, the Catskills, even a few counties in south central New York, eastern Pennsylvania, all of New Jersey, northern Delaware, parts of northeastern Maryland, down to the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, just on the other side of the Virginia state line. We also have some flood watches up for southern Michigan and in the counties around and north of Chicago toward Milwaukee. It was a hot day here. I got to 90, exactly. 90.0 was my high for today. So this is, I believe, the fourth time I've hit 90 degrees this summer. And...
Wow. And at 2,200 feet, that's saying something, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that's why I was out at 6:30 this morning, finishing scrubbing my deck. In the coolness of temperatures in the low 60s, which was really nice. We do have heat advisories up for Southeast Virginia down through the Carolinas. They turn into excessive heat warnings through much of Georgia except the north. And by the way, if you look at North Georgia, there's an area there that's not under heat advisories or excessive heat, and I live in that little area there. The excessive heat warnings go all across the Gulf states into eastern Texas, and also for South Texas as well. We've got excessive heat issues also in the west, in central and northern California, away from the coast, and then along the coast of northwestern California, up through coastal Oregon and much of the state of Washington under excessive heat. And where it's not excessive heat there, Joe, it's heat advisory. So, you kind of have this funny thing where you've got this flattish ridge along the Gulf states that's been ebbing back and forth all summer long, and now you also have, because the flow is sort of split, you've got ridging up in the Pacific Northwest, and they're getting hit with heat too.
And as we mentioned yesterday, it appears that next week we're going to be looking at the possibility of seeing a protracted spell of heat, even here in the Northeast. It may not last very long, but maybe just enough to string together 3 90-degree days in a row at Central Park. A possibility, he says, a possibility. Nothing that we can make promises about, but this has been a summer where stringing more than a couple of days of 90-degree temperatures together here in the Northeast has been difficult.
Yes, oh, definitely. And some of the guidance is a little conflicting about early next week, which we'll get to in a bit. David Schwartz, Joe, hit Super Chat tonight. Thank you, David, for hitting the tip jar. And he wants to know, we interrupt this weather to bring you something from outer space. He wants to know if you saw these new images from the Webb telescope that Mars's rotation is increasing.
I have not heard about that. Mars rotates on its axis in something like 24 hours and 37 minutes. It's about a half an hour more than the Earth. So very similar to the Earth. I have not heard or seen anything about the possibility that the rotation is increasing. Maybe it's just that, all of these years, and we go back into the late 19th century, watching Mars with our telescopes and making an estimation of 2437. And now with the Webb telescope being so much better than any telescope, even the Hubble, in giving us images of objects out there in space, that maybe we might have perhaps miscalculated initially, and maybe it might only be a matter of a minute or two, or maybe even just seconds. But the Webb telescope is a very new technology, and I'll have to look that up. I had not heard about that, so thanks for cueing me in on that.
And on our surface map tonight, before I just mentioned, Ken Musillo hits the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Ken, for hitting Super Chat. Most appreciated. Ken was the one who informed me that the flood watches were up after I posted the video. He said, well, why don't you do another video? And my answer was, no, I'm not doing another video. Because you know what, Joe? If I had done another video after I would have posted that up, they would have put up the watches for the other areas that they left out. So yeah, that's why I didn't do it. So here's our surface map at 5 o'clock. We've got a low sitting just south of Chicago. You can see the warm front that runs across east central Indiana, southern Ohio, northern West Virginia through Maryland. And when you go south of that warm front, the dew points are all up in the mid 70s, even some upper 70 dew points. I just noticed there's a 77 dew point. That might be Bowling Green in Kentucky. But yeah, I mean the dew points are just off the wall in the south of the warm front, and the dew points are now creeping up north of the warm front too, as they've gotten up into the middle and upper 60s. And of course, with that warm front pushing northward, there's going to be some rain and storms with that, which I'll get to in a moment. The 5 o'clock temperatures across much of Georgia were in the middle and upper 90s. It was in the upper 90s to around 100 in areas in Alabama. Low 100-degree highs in much of central Mississippi. Mid 100-degree highs in parts of southwest Louisiana, western Louisiana. I mean, it is brutal. Even southeast Louisiana. One thing about the heat and humidity in New Orleans was one thing. You never saw the temperature get much above 91 or 92 for a daytime high. But I mean, they're going to mid and upper 90s here. And on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain, temperatures are running topped out over 100, which is a little unusual. But not this summer. And of course, you see all the 100-degree readings in Texas. They have a cold front, Joe, analyzed that runs northeast southwest in Texas from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. So this cold front has temperatures ahead of it that are 104, 102, 103, 102, 103. And then you go behind the cold front, and they have temperatures of 102, 104, 102, 102. Now, I don't understand this because
is it a dew point front, maybe?
Well, yes and no, because I'm looking here. The dew points are in the mid 60s. Actually, the dew points there's even some 50 dew points when you get further south into South Texas. But most dew points were in the low and mid 60s ahead of the cold front. Behind the cold front, the dew points, there's an area where the dew points jump up above 70. So I don't know. Maybe there might have been some thunderstorm activity nearby or something. And then you get up into Oklahoma, where they've had a noticeable cool down there. Temperatures in the 80s and dew points in the low and mid 50s. So that's where your drier area is, and it covers much of the state, all of Kansas up through Nebraska. Just really nice air here that has settled in the plains. And up into the northern Rockies. Then we go out west, and you've got that chain of hundreds running up the interior of California. And I'm looking up in Washington and Oregon. I'm seeing 100-degree readings, just inland of the coast, by not that many miles on some of these stations. I imagine Portland's got to be one of these where it's either that 97 or the 100 that I see up just to the north. So very, very hot. And on the satellite tonight, I'll give it a quick refresh here because I don't remember if I did before the show or not. But look at that rotation And the good thing about that rotation is that it's at its peak in terms of strength, but there's still a fairly viable shortwave that's going to survive out of that that's moving eastward. But you can see that there's lightning strikes now that are down in Chesapeake Bay, eastern North Carolina, some scattered thunderstorms in parts of South Carolina and Georgia. There's actually a few cells just to the southeast of me on the Florida Panhandle, scattered around in South Florida. Around the rotation, there are a couple of thunderstorms in and around Chicago at the moment. So I think that's why they got the flood watches that they have up for that part of northern Illinois and into northeastern Illinois and southeastern Wisconsin. But that's the mechanism that's bringing up the warm front, and all the clouds are rolling in now. So now we're just going to have to wait and see how the radar plays it. I think you're going to see the radars actually pick up in intensity as we go through the night and as this area moves to the northeast.
And I would say right now, Joe, that if you're doing anything this evening in the New York City tri-state area and you're looking at the clouds, which look fairly ominous as of this moment in time, and saying, "Oh my goodness, it looks like it's going to rain any moment." Actually, it looks like right now that the first raindrops may not come until after midnight, and perhaps it's not going to last all that long. Maybe 6 hour time interval when the rains are going to come down really hard. But I'm thinking like maybe 3 to 9 o'clock, 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. or 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. Something in that time frame. And as you point out, if this is a warm front, so we would probably get some steady and possibly at times heavy rain. Whether or not any convection gets involved will be playing the role as to whether or not we're looking at 1 to 2 inches, or maybe you want to double that, possibly 2 to even, in some isolated spots, 4 inches. That's not out of the question, depending upon where you are relative to the bands or the areas of heavier precip. So again, the worst of this is going to come probably in the after midnight hours tonight.
Oh yeah, no question. And you know what? In those 6 hours, it's going to pour in some places.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to pour in a rather big way. The radar, as we take a look, and of course I will refresh this. I know I refreshed it before the show, but I'll refresh it again. And we actually do have some heavier rains now in southern New Jersey that have in the yellow, and also a couple of heavier downpours in southeastern Pennsylvania. But there's still quite a bit of rain in central and western Pennsylvania that's moving maybe just slightly north of due east. And I think what you're going to, this area is probably going to expand a bit and fire up a bit as we go through the next 4 or 5 hours. Meanwhile, some thunderstorms are rocking into southwest Ohio and southern Indiana, although I'm not seeing any severe thunderstorm warnings there. We've got, you can see the thunderstorms in and around Chicago and northeastern Illinois, and also in Lake Michigan. Looks like a lot of thunderstorms in Lake Michigan right now. And we've got some heavier rain in much of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Further south, a couple of thunderstorms. Nothing really standing out, though, in North Carolina, also in South Georgia. So none of these are really producing severe weather conditions. We've got some scattered thunderstorms in eastern and central Tennessee. Severe thunderstorm warning box that pops up there. And looking back into the west, we've got some scattered, we actually have some clusters of showers in parts of western New Mexico, southwest Colorado. Not a whole lot going on in Arizona. A bit into Utah, and also some showers up in Nevada and Northern California. So that pretty much covers it. You could see the rotation on the radar presentation. You could see the radar echoes in that sort of spiral look to it that's moving eastward, and it's basically lifting that warm front northward.
And normally, warm fronts don't really progress all that well through the tri-state New York area. We touched upon this yesterday. And the longer that it moves, or the slower that it moves, the more likely we're going to be in line for some significant or heavy rainfall. Hopefully, it'll be able to get on through a bit quicker, and that we won't have to deal with a prolonged or protracted spell of very heavy rain later tonight.
And let's see. Let's go to the Storm Prediction Center, shall we?
Surely. Oh, by the way, if it doesn't move very quickly tonight, the warm front that is, maybe it's due to cold air damming. Now, then again, maybe not.
Yeah, no, wrong time of year. Actually, this is the time of year where these warm fronts you know, can and do oftentimes overproduce because there's no real, the marine influence is gone unless you've got a northeast wind that say it's coming off the Gulf of Maine or coming down from Nova Scotia. Excuse me. With the ocean water temperatures now in most of the regions south of southern New England and east of New Jersey are in the upper 70s, a sea breeze doesn't really accomplish very much. Let's put it that way. The folks at the Storm Prediction Center have a slight risk up through central Jersey, southeast and south central PA, all of Delaware, all of Maryland, all of Virginia, most of Virginia, except a small portion in the south central part of the state. Then you get into marginal risk in North Carolina, and that slight risk goes all the way back into central and eastern Tennessee. Marginal risk across the rest of the Ohio Valley. There is, and that's another thing with these warm fronts sometimes, particularly when you're dealing with tropical air, you can't get these small tornadoes that spin up. And the Storm Prediction Center actually has a 5%, which is kind of high. They have a 5% tornado risk for central and south Jersey, Delaware, and much of central and eastern Maryland, southeast and south central Pennsylvania. They've got a 2% going all the way up to your front door, Mr. Rayo, in Putnam Valley.
You don't see that in a marginal zone.
Yeah, you get these warm fronts this time of year when with the dew point's so high, and it doesn't really take too much. This is when you get those small, those sort of small tornadoes. Long Island gets those when you get into air masses like this time of year when it's very, very tropical. By the way, I just want to mention welcome to everybody on the chat board and welcome to those of you watching in the background. Would be nice if we get to 100 likes tonight. So if you like the show, hit the like button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Joe Cioffi, so you can get notifications. Make sure they're turned on so you get notifications for the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on every Monday through Thursdays at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m. We will not be on this Thursday, just a heads up. Okay, back to the Storm Prediction Center. Well, let me take a look. Yeah, 5 to 15% for wind, but no, they're not. No, this is not a hail situation, so they don't have hail in there. Now tomorrow, they did nudge up slightly the marginal risk a little further north this morning when they did the morning forecast. They pushed it up into northern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southeastern Mass. They pushed it up to just north of Route 84 in New York State. And all of New Jersey, with the exception of the extreme northwest, which is not in the marginal, and the extreme southeast, which is in the slight risk, and then it runs down the east coast, because the timing of tomorrow's front is likely to be sometime during the mid-afternoon. What's that?
Problematic?
Yes, because it's in the middle of the afternoon, so that's probably going to favor stronger thunderstorm formation going south, which is why SPC's got the risks lined up the way they do, and also why they don't have the risk areas all the way back into Pennsylvania and all the way up into upstate New York and New England. And by the way, notice the big area of no thunderstorm activity covering the Northwest, the Northern Rockies, all of the plains, just about all of the all of the Mississippi Valley, and most of the Ohio Valley, and also up in northern New England. No thunderstorms are being forecast. This comes tomorrow with two small areas of tornado risk. They've got a 2%, Joe, from the George Washington Bridge to about the Palisades, and then northeastward from there into Connecticut, Long Island, Rhode Island, and southeastern Mass. Now, I'm trying to figure out if you're not going for, I guess that's to cover the risk that there might be some thunderstorms in the afternoon. I don't know. I think there's probably a better chance that you'll see maybe a red box or two tornado warning tonight with the warm front than with the cold front tomorrow. But you know what? I could be wrong on that. And also the southern part of Delmarva, southeast Virginia, and northeastern North Carolina. So with rain being really the front and center of all of this, WPC has slight risk, which is 15 to 40% for flash flooding. Long Island, the Hudson Valley, the Catskills, much of Pennsylvania except the Northwest, all of New Jersey, Delaware, all of Maryland, cuts off halfway across the Delmarva Peninsula that kind of backs to West Virginia and down into the southern Appalachians to just north of my house. So, anyhow, I'm thinking an inch or two of rain is a pretty good bet.
For you or for us?
No, for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. I think an inch or two is a pretty good bet.
Well, don't forget now that and Kenneth Rosenberg saying it's raining now, 8:06 p.m. in New City, Rockland County. Joe Rayo saying that's I guess in answer to the fact that I said if you're going out, no, don't worry until after midnight. But you always get in these very humid air masses the renegade little cell of precip that happens to move over a few spots and makes me look like a fool. So
yeah. Also, slight risk tomorrow in southeastern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, which includes Chicago and Milwaukee. Detroit's in the slight risk for flash flooding. Southern Michigan and extreme northern Indiana and extreme northwestern Ohio. And we've got some marginal risk areas in the southwest and in a small portion of the Sierra Nevadas. And just for laughs, I'm going to take a look at day 3, which is this is Tuesday. Why is that? Did they update this? Today's Monday, so I don't know why this is day 3. This is day 2. Okay, I just didn't refresh. Okay, so tomorrow it's a marginal risk to match up with the flash flood risks pretty much match up with what SPC did with the severe weather. And then on Thursday they've got a marginal risk down the Carolina coast, southeast Georgia, Florida, the southwest, and again in the Sierra Nevadas. And the 3-day rainfalls, which take us through Wednesday evening, Joe, from WPC, looks like, they, of course, as you know, all too well, how they just watch us almost continuously there at WPC. And they, too, are indicating 1 to maybe 2 inches for much of the Northeast and the Northern Mid-Atlantic states out of this.
Could you give me sharing capabilities for just a moment?
It's such a pleasure for me to do that so that I can give my voice a rest. Yes, you have sharing capabilities, Mr. Rayo.
All I want to do is I just want to show everybody. It's not a loop. This is the very latest image from the National Weather Service. And
all right, hold on. Before you get to the latest image, I have to get that on the screen. And here we go. Now we can see the latest loop from the National Weather Service. Since you've got that up, let's, after you're done with that, go to Fort Dix and take a look at what's going on from there.
I'm just putting this up for Kenneth Rosenberg because he says it's raining at 8:06 in New City, Rockland County. Well, of course. I mean, take a look. Here's New City, and here's the one little area of rainfall. The rest of Rockland, Orange County, nothing. Westchester County, nothing. Putnam County, nothing. It's in New York City, nothing. But this one little area here, here's all the I guess you can call it the heavy artillery, still off to the west. That'll be moving in later tonight. But again, sometimes you get this one little area, this renegade area of precipitation, which happens to pass over somebody's house. And that's what's happening right now in New City, New York.
Well,
now, what did you
put up? Why don't you go to the Fort Dix radar and loop it?
Okay, I'll loop it for 3 hours.
While you're setting that up, we're at 89 likes, so we're only 11 shy of 100. So if you could push us over 100, it would be a yippee moment for Joe and I.
Yes. And here you go. Here's the Fort Dix radar. And take a look how quickly southern New Jersey is getting covered by what looks to be at least light to moderate rainfall. And the rest of Jersey, central Jersey and northern Jersey, for the most part, is out in the clear. Although we're now beginning to see near the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border, that beginning to fill in with precipitation. And again, this area here in eastern PA moving at a good clip to the east. So very soon, the next, well, maybe you don't have to wait till midnight in the immediate tri-state area. Maybe in the next 1 to 3 hours, you will be seeing rainfall, shower activity, again from the warm front, which is approaching. And, you know, it's moving at a pretty good clip, Joe. This is maybe it won't last for 6 hours. Maybe it only will last for 3 or 4. But again, it's going to come down and in some places it's going to come down pretty heavily for periods of time overnight tonight.
Total agreement. All right, let's just see what WPC's got for 7 days as far as rainfall is concerned. And you see it there. The looks like what's going on in the Northeast is front end loaded. So after today and tomorrow, well, maybe we won't be seeing too much in the way of additional rain for the rest of the week. We'll see about that. In the meantime, up and down the coast, we're looking at 1 inch and a half rains in southeast Virginia, down to southern Georgia and the Florida Panhandle, and over the state of Florida, actually ample amounts of rain on the order of several inches or more, particularly in the southwestern part of the state. Loaded up there. That's a 4 to 5 inch. That orange color is 5 inches. So they're talking about 5 inches over the next week. Also some big monsoon rains coming into Arizona and Southern California on the order of 1.5 inches plus. That's a lot of rain. So if that materializes, I'm sure there'll probably be thunderstorms with all of that. There will likely be some flash flooding issues at some point over the next week. And also a little bit of front-end loading over in Michigan, where we're seeing 1.5 inches to 2.5 inch rainfalls, since much of that is going on even as we speak. So we're going to take the HRRR here. This is the absolute latest HRRR that's out there, Joe. And this is 8 o'clock, which is just 12 minutes ago. And actually, what's on the radar, if you believe it, it kind of looks like the HRRR is underdoing what the radar is showing. But you see what picks up here in south central PA with thunderstorms as we head to 9 and 10 o'clock tonight. And then that comes in, right around midnight. And you can see the heavy rains that move across North Jersey, New York City, and Long Island, and also back into eastern Pennsylvania. There's a little hook in there, the way the radar echo is shaped. And here we are. This is at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So by 6 a.m., the rain is done in New York City. By 7 a.m., it's done on Long Island and northern New Jersey. It's already long gone in eastern Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania. Out of the Hudson Valley by 8 a.m., and it's still going on in northern Connecticut and southeastern New England. But this should be, the very beginning of the morning commute tomorrow will probably be a little dicey, but it'll be improving pretty quickly. And, of course, if you look to the south and you look up in northern New England, there's not a whole lot. And then you've got the low center that's somewhere between Detroit and Lansing, and an arc of heavy rain and thunderstorms in moving up into central Michigan with that. So this will move on out. And now when we look at tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to bring up, I didn't look at the NAM, so I'll just take a look at the NAM model. We might as well look at it before they get rid of it. So
they still thinking about that?
I think so. I got to ask Bill Goodman if they've rescinded that. I'm not sure. But you can see that the NAM tonight also is pretty juicy with rainfalls there, particularly in eastern PA and North Jersey and into Long Island. So this is at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So it's similar to the HRRR's idea. Then that goes out, and then you start to see with the cold front, see where all the development winds up being more to the south, although it does fire up some cells tomorrow evening for some reason in eastern PA. This is at 10 o'clock tomorrow night, Joe. It's got what looks like a big thunderstorm somewhere between Philadelphia and Harrisburg. It's got another, the front kind of gets hung up, and it's got another wave coming up. I don't know how real that is. The NAM tends to get very squirrely now after about 30 hours or so, 36 hours in its run. So it's still pretty good inside 36 hours, but outside of 36 hours, it does weird things sometimes. And the GFS, you see where all the storms fire up tomorrow. This is at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Big storms off the New Jersey coast. So we assume that they'll be developing overhead and strengthening overhead. So for the areas that are in that slight risk from southern New Jersey southward, you're going to be in a position where these storms are actually increasing in intensity, which is usually when thunderstorms are at their worst, is when they're in the strengthening modes. And that's, I think, what's going to happen tomorrow. And then, of course, the front moves offshore. So the GFS doesn't have that second wave idea, which doesn't make sense. Now, it keeps trying to do this on Thursday. Now, all of a sudden, Joe, excuse me, it started this today, stalls the front off the southeast coast, and suddenly on Thursday, it brings up this rain up the coast during Thursday. Did you believe this? Or no?
Now, this is the intermediate, the 18Z.
No, even the 12Z did this. They both did it.
Well, I was thinking that, excuse me, I was thinking that Friday would be a potentially active day because of an upper level trough moving across the northeast.
Right. And you can see the storms with that, which are very active across Michigan. But I just switched to the 12Z run. And the 12Z run also has this stalled frontal boundary offshore, and it's got rain coming up the coast for Thursday afternoon, and then it goes out. But it would imply that Thursday's, it would sort of imply that this front is somehow lifting up whatever energy is still left offshore, and then it's once that front goes by that we get into that big dry high that you see there on the Illinois-Indiana state line that comes in for Friday and for Saturday. I mean, to me, it looks like Friday and Saturday, after the fronts go by on Friday, that Saturday will be a really nice day with lots of sun and reasonable dew points before we start seeing those dew points climb.
Well, we can hope that this weekend will turn out to be will be a good one. We haven't had too many really good weekends. We've been getting away with, one nice day, one not so nice day for much of this summer, and in a couple of cases we've had both days get washed out. So it'd be nice for a change. And if this does indeed transpire on Friday, maybe the wave will intensify a little bit, turn the winds into a breezy northwestern direction, and that will wraps up to dry things out quicker for Friday night and on into the weekend.
Now, as far as the long range is concerned, I'm looking at the European here. Then I'll switch to the GFS. So here comes the Thursday trough. That's actually fairly sharp and goes negatively tilted here. And the jet goes all the way down into South Carolina. Then that lifts out. You start to see the big upper ridge that's over the middle Mississippi, Missouri River Valley Basin over the weekend, and it kind of tries to nose into the northeast for Monday, but both models are strengthening this upper low that forms in Labrador and then suddenly brings a trough down the east coast for later Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So you could look at this and you could think, you know what? Maybe you could string through, maybe Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you could string 3 days at 90. But if the models, if both the European and the GFS showing this, the models are correct, the heat's not going to go much beyond 3 days.
All right. Well, I'm all for that. I don't want any. Quite frankly, I wouldn't even want to have 1 day of possible heat, or above 90 degree. But that, as I said, it would be short-lived. 3 days for a heat wave, and we'll have our shot next week.
Yeah,
and then things will reverse, and we'll have, again, as you pointed out, that upper trough, which will help to turn things around and bring in cooler or drier Canadian air, which could put an end to that threat of heat.
Yeah, I mean, look at both the 12 and the 18Z. Now, the difference with the GFS is, and the European, is that the GFS gets to where the European is, but gets it there a day or two later. So the GFS would say that it would be hot maybe through the middle of next week. before you get this really deep trough. Look how deep this trough is. I mean, God, it goes all the way down into the northern. This pushes a cold front all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico, if this is correct. This is for Saturday, August 26th. I mean, that is, that kind of matches up since the type of patterns that we've had for all of this summer with the troughs wanting to be in the east, and now we're talking about the calendar being almost to late August. This is quite a push of air coming down out of Canada. I would say it's downright cool. If that's the case. And then you've got a big ridge in the Rockies that's building up in the west at the same time. I mean, this is just this is an interesting scenario in the long range for the end, for the latter part, say the last week of the month of August. You're going to want this to verify if you want really pleasant weather. You're going to want this to happen.
Well, it might be a little late in coming, but certainly it almost looks like we're going to jump from midsummer to mid-autumn or mid-fall with this change in the upper air patterns, because this really is not just a cool, but it looks like to be an exceptionally cool, more indicative of late September as opposed to late August.
Look at the dew point. I love this dew point map. Oh, that it should only be correct. Joe, 30 dew points, Joe. 30 dew points in Pennsylvania on Saturday, August 26th. 40 dew points all the way down to, what is that over New Orleans? I can't quite see it. A 49 dew point for August 27th.
In New Orleans.
Yes, and 30 dew points in Texas and Oklahoma, 20 dew points up in Kansas. The whole east, except for southeast Georgia down into Florida, where it's still but even there, even into southeast Georgia, and eventually the 40 dew points get in there. But this is quite the cool air mass. I'm trying to remember last year, sometime right around this time last year, we had a really cool air mass that came into the east, and I remember it dropped down. I think it dropped down into the 40s here for one morning. It was like upper 40s and low 50s. I mean, I just out of curiosity, I want to see what the temperature map is. Excuse me. So this is now. I have the map up for 0Z Sunday, Joe. And, oh God, these temperatures. This can't be. I mean, this just can't be. So hold on. I'm just going to take a look. 258.
Well, let's ask a question, Joe. Might we see, at least in parts of New England, some snow by the end of the month?
Oh, no. But you know what? You've got the GFS for 12Z Saturday has 40s. All, pretty much all in upstate New York. It's got a 48 print in whatever that is near New York City. I mean, that's crazy. That would be record lows.
Now, let's point this out, though. When you say Saturday, we're talking about Saturday the 26th.
Right, and then on Sunday the 27th, for me, it's got low 50s, which translate that up 2,200 feet. That's mid 40s. I mean, this is really cool. This is a very, very cool air mass that would spread down into the southeast. Meanwhile, I just accidentally stopped at Monday afternoon at 18Z, where we have an 115 print in northwest Iowa, 115, Joe, 112 in whatever that is in eastern Nebraska,
right,
102 Madison, Wisconsin, 102 in northern Indiana. That's Monday, and then Tuesday, it's got 113 in Minneapolis. 113. This is for next Tuesday, the 22nd.
That's kind of pushing it, isn't it?
Don't you think?
Yeah.
You think? It's got 103 for wherever that is in Georgia, in south central Georgia.
Well, let's say this verified. Almost certainly, if that verified, next Tuesday on every national news report. There's the CBS
Oh,
Evening.
their hair will be on fire. They will be screaming to the rafters about
They will
this.
be leading off with something like that. The extreme heat, which is affecting 130 million people, and let's talk about people, oh, it's horrible. Now, when we flip and go to the other side of the equation, the other end of the spectrum, and have abnormally cool weather, fall-like weather,
Oh,
September,
you won't hear a peep.
you won't hear a peep.
Right. Not a peep.
Because
Uh,
the news organizations, they don't want you to be exposed to good news or nice weather news. As I said, this would be on the opposite side of the spectrum to get those abnormally cool, dry, very pleasant conditions. Why not lead off with, oh my goodness, it's so wonderful outside, the fresh air, they're not going to do that. They only are interested in, the bad news situation. It's like what I said, I've said this to a few people in recent days, Joe. Why is it that when something bad happens, people flip their eyes to the sky and say, why me? Why me? But when something good happens to that same person, do they say, why me? No, they don't. I don't. It's a very interesting psychological
it should
thing.
be me. It should be me.
It should be me.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I circled it on the map. This is for next Tuesday, Joe. There's a 600 hot plus high at 500 millibars at 18,000 feet.
Well, that would do it, wouldn't it?
That would have to. I mean, if you're talking about temperatures going to 110 up in that part of the country, it would have to be a high that strong in the upper atmosphere to pull it off.
Right.
And you know what? When you think about it, if we're talking about an anomalous, so one word I've always had trouble with, anomalous, upper air low in Labrador that's wrapped up like an animal up there, you have to have a corresponding really strong high to support that. A strong ridge has to be around somewhere to support a deep trough. And so it kind of makes sense if you're going to buy the idea that there's going to be a deep upper low in eastern Canada that's going to get into eastern Canada and eventually dive down in the eastern part of the United States. And you see it here, what happens to that upper high, it gets completely squashed because the upper low that's in eastern Canada, you get this arm that backs westward and just plummets southward, bringing this jet all the way down into the Gulf Coast. So kind of I marvel at stuff like this when it shows this sort of extreme, especially because we're coming to the end of the summer, and this this tendency to have these deep troughs in the east now is pretty interesting because we're going to be going into the fall months. Maybe this will be one of those years that we haven't had in a long time where we may have cool temperatures in the eastern part of the United States for the month of September. I almost want to bite my tongue because now that I've said it, it won't happen. But if these troughs get deep like this, or even close, doesn't even have to be that deep. If it's even somewhat close to this, it's going to be on the coolish side going into the month of September.
Now that big 600 high at 500. What date was that? That was
next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, which is August.
Actually Monday. Monday, the 600 high is there over Iowa, Illinois, and northern Missouri. I mean, if that's correct, brutal heat. And by the way, while that's going on, take a look on the lower left because there's a hurricane that's moving northwestward, just offshore, parallel to the coast. Of moving up the Baja Peninsula and actually, gets pretty far north before it turns. We had this happen last year with one of these hurricanes where it was approaching San Diego and they got some rain in Southern California out of that. It gets up that far north and then it turns westward and dies. But so it looks like we may have another one of these systems there on the from the East Pacific, and you can see it on the surface.
And this looks like a classic. This looks like a classic Omega block, where you've got disturbances on both coasts, and of course that system up in in Atlantic Canada, and you've got that one big dome, which the news media now have latched onto, a heat dome. Oh, a heat dome is going to be over the central part of the United States. And if Joe, if you throw it over to my screen, um, it says risk of hazardous temperatures at the Climate Prediction Center.
All right, hold
This
on. I'm switching as we speak.
this would be for Tuesday, August 22nd through Wednesday of next week, August 23rd. And take a look. They have the excessive heat zone, slight chance, but the excessive heat going all the way up to South Dakota and the southern half of Minnesota. And they also have a high probability of excessive heat. And you're in this, Joe. Congratulations.
I accept the award with humility and grace.
For Louisiana and a stripe of eastern Arkansas, all of Mississippi, all of Alabama, much of Tennessee, and most of western and central sections of Georgia, including the Joe Cioffi land area of Georgia, and also the panhandle of Florida. Excessive heat, high probability of excessive heat over in the southeastern states for next Tuesday and for next Wednesday, and the possibility or probability of excessive heat going all the way north up into portions of South Dakota, southern Minnesota, the lower Great Lakes, and just falling short of New York City for, again, next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. So it looks like we're going to be looking, for some folks, it looks like it's going to be exceedingly hot. And again, we'll probably be hearing all of the national news channels emphasizing the heat dome and the extreme heat early next week. But will they say anything a week later when we're all basking in unseasonably cool, almost Garden of Eden type weather with well below normal temperatures, bright sunshine, low humidity, pleasant conditions? Will we be talking, the news people be talking about that? Of course not. But they will be probably playing up the extreme heat that'll be covering a good part of the eastern and central states, again, sometime early next week.
All right. So let me just quickly run through the tropics. Because there are a couple of there's I think one interesting thing is Tropical Storm Greg in the Pacific, and Greg is at 11.3 north, 141.7 west, and it's moving westward. Top winds are 45 miles an hour. It's taking a track very close to what Hurricane Dora just did, and it's going to pass about 400 miles south of Hawaii. But the thing with Greg is that it's going over the same waters that Dora, as a Category 4 hurricane, just churned up and upwelled. So I doubt that this will get much beyond tropical storm strength. And in fact, they have it weakening to a depression by Friday morning when it's south of the the westernmost island of Hawaii. But it's kind of interesting that this is the second storm in a week that's taking an almost identical track to Hurricane Dora, which indirectly was part of the issue with regards to the very dry air that was over Hawaii, which, of course, we all know what's been going on with those horrible wildfires in Maui. I mean, it's really tragic. But I don't think that this storm is going to make things any worse. I don't think as it goes westward. The other storm that's out there, Joe, is Hurricane Fernanda, which is a Category 4, 130 mile an hour winds, and this is sitting further east. And it's moving west. It's at 15.9 north and 119 west, moving westward, and forecast is to weaken to a tropical storm by Wednesday, and then by Friday it's just a remnant low as it's moving along toward the west. On the Atlantic side, we have nothing yet. It's still quiet. There are two tropical systems off the coast of Africa. One is moving, going to be around or just west of the Cabo Verde Islands, and they got a 30% chance of this developing in the next 7 days. The one further to the south is moving westward. Development of that will be slow to occur, according to the Hurricane Center, and they only have a 20% chance. I'm not going to get into what the models are doing with these systems today, because you have various runs that have Camille off the southeast coast of the United States by the end of the week, and then you go to the very next run and it's at New Orleans, and then you go to the very next run and there's nothing there at all. So I figure, why don't we wait a day or two to see what settles out? I think eventually something will come. That's not really any stroke of genius here, folks. We're in the middle of August, and what should be at least a normal type hurricane season, we think. So something's got to go sooner or later. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. So
and even if there's a small risk of some kind of a development of a tropical system out in the Caribbean or the Atlantic Basin, you just know that, again, somebody on the news media is going to say, hey, and August is beginning to cook up now. We're beginning to see signs of tropical activity in the Atlantic. And then they'll throw in that malarkey about the as we mentioned yesterday, the abnormally active tropical outlook that's going to be supposedly happening. We said we need to have 15 storms between now and the end of the Atlantic hurricane season for it to be a very active, or to match the prediction of what the folks over in Colorado State have indicated. And by the way, they mention with Greg, the storm that's passing south of Hawaii, they mentioned the fact that the waters south of Hawaii are abnormally warm, and that certainly would help tropical development. But they also point out that there's quite a bit of shear going on.
Well, you mentioned this yesterday. You could have all the warm water. You could have the entire Atlantic Ocean could be a bathtub, a hot tub. But if the upper air's not right, nothing's going to happen.
And that's my point. Now, I am not an expert like the folks at Colorado or even at the National Hurricane Center, which also has bumped up their hurricane forecasts and saying that we're going to now have an unusually active season. That goes against the rule with El Nino, which suggests that there'll be a lot of shear, and that will cut down on any tropical activity in the month of September, the most active month of all for hurricane activity. And again, I say, if you're going to have the shear, and it's not just, and the reason why I'm saying this, Joe, is that the folks at the Climate Prediction Center are saying that this is going to be a, quote, super El Nino. So if you're going to have super El Nino conditions with lots of shear, I agree with you. You could have you could have bathtub water out in the Atlantic Ocean.
It won't matter.
The warm water is not going to help you if you've got shear that's ripping these storms apart as they're trying to develop. So we'll see.
I do have a small thing, something that kind of struck a nerve with me. Yesterday. I'm going to see if I can find it. So
we kicked off with a Rayo rant tonight, and we're going to finish. The demuar is going to be a Cioffi. Well, maybe not a rant.
Well,
but
let me see if this is. No, this wasn't it. I got a comment. So I don't know if some of you may have the the app Newsbreak, which is actually a pretty cool app to have, because they post, Joe, they post news items from various television stations all around the country. So you'll see clips, you'll see weather clips from all sorts of different weather stations, whatever happens to be driving, whatever the algorithms are doing that drives the. Oh, here it is. So this was a comment that was left that initially hit a really raw nerve with me, and then I started thinking about it a little bit more. So he says, this is Al Sullivan on Newsbreak, says severe, because I write on there, my website posts appear on there, so I just wrote about the severe weather issues that we're dealing with tonight and tomorrow. And he says severe is a code word that these idiots use. Idiots, Joe, referring to you and I. People and people like you and I, to imply climate change. It's going to rain and there's going to be thunderstorms. Stop being stupid and propagandistic. Okay, so this lovely woman, Barbara Miller, responded by saying, maybe your house will get washed out to sea, which I thought was an interesting answer. So I responded, no, severe weather. Severe weather is for thunderstorms that can cause damaging winds and possible tornadoes. Forecasting severe weather has nothing to do with climate change because it doesn't. You and I, we don't sit here and try to deduce whether a particular thunderstorm is the result of climate change. That's not what we do. We look at whatever weather conditions are going on, whatever the upper air is telling us, whatever the surface is telling us, whatever the radars and satellites are telling us, and we forecast. So that was my point in my response. No, severe weather is for thunderstorms that can cause damaging winds and possibly tornadoes. Forecasting severe weather has nothing to do with climate change or, and the political stuff that he's referring to. But my point is, and I finished by saying not everything is a conspiracy, okay? So it got me thinking about the fact that now you and I both have been doing this for well over 40 years, all right? I have never, ever done something on the air related to the weather forecasting that, the weather of the day and saying, well, tonight we have climate change induced severe thunderstorms that'll be moving through the tri-state area, right? I mean, I've never done that. You've never done that.
Right.
So I don't know. It just, the thing is, I wonder, because we're not on the inside anymore, but I wonder, because I don't watch weathercasters, but I wonder whether the weather people, are they under some kind of, I mean, do they get a producer coming in and say, can you say this is climate change? You understand what I'm getting at here. Where you and I, when they would come in, when they say, can you make the snowstorm sounds worse than it is, which we never did. But I just wonder if in the professional world that you and I are no longer part of, whether there's that pressure to do that sort of thing.
It's an interesting question. I have heard in other television markets of people who are very responsible but have been told by the hierarchy that we need to get the ratings up and make this sound as cataclysmic as you possibly could. What are you going to do? You still want to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way it. And Paul Roman, drama casters.
Right. And Mary says, but there are U.S. weather modification patents dating back to the 1940s. And that may be true. I don't know. That may be true, Mary, but I don't care about that. That's got nothing to do with me. That's got nothing to do with what Joe and I do. Okay? We don't get a memo every week telling us what storms have been are going to be created in certain areas. All right? And I mean that sarcastically. So that doesn't matter. The point is that we do what's in front of us. We do the day-to-day weather. We delve a bit into the long range. We go into the tropics and all the rest of it. But that's kind of where it stops. I just find that there's so much. I'm discovering with a lot of these comments that are posted. There's just all this, everything. Everybody's being accused, whatever that it is that they do, that there must be some sort of nefarious political reason to do it. And all I'm saying is that, for those of you who think that there is, and I'm sure there are people watching in the background who think that there is, at least from, certainly from our standpoint, there isn't. And I would say probably for most of the people professionally, that is not the case. They're just doing their job.
Latex Dreams asks, were you pressured by high powers to change your forecast? I'll only speak for myself, and Joe, you can then follow up. I worked for 21 years at News 12 Westchester with a news director by the name of Janine Rose. Those of you who had News 12 Westchester or Hudson Valley on your system know all about Janine. She never, ever pressured me. And in fact, at editorial meetings, when we did have impending big weather coming, Janine said, we're going to go with what Joe says. We're not, whatever Joe says and whatever Joe forecasts, we're following along his line. Toward the end of my run, and I'm not going to mention his name, we got an assistant news director who came in, and he was of the type who did indeed want to pressure and want to hype. In fact, it was on the Saturday morning before the arrival of Irene. This is back in 2011, and I was on at 5:30 or 6 a.m. my first weathercast, and I just did I looked into the camera and I said, look, folks, we've been through things like this before. We're going to get through it again. We're going to let you know what's going to happen moment by moment. We're going to tell you right now what the story is. And I went through all of that, and after I was done, the assistant news director came running in, fire breathing out of his mouth and in his eyes, saying, he says, I don't want you to go into a sermon, and I don't want you to tell people. I just want to I want you to tell people that this is going to be serious and that we're going to have a terrible situation. And he slammed the door in the weather center. This person, by the way, the assistant news director, formerly worked for Fox. So I'm not making a political statement, but it just shows the difference between what I had been working with for 20 plus years with Janine, telling everybody on staff, listen to Joe. Joe's going to play it cool and calm. If it's going to be something bad, Joe will let everybody know. And that's the way I always played it. And then, of course, you have people on the other side who get very upset because I was not fire and brimstone on the air and not trying to rev everybody up by scaring people. That was not my style. It never was my style. It never will be my style.
Well, and I didn't have that experience like you had.
That was the term. The consultants were telling the assistant news director, Joe doesn't give out enough wattage. That was a term that the consultant said, Joe needs to hype up his wattage. In other words, Joe needs to go on the air and tell people, a big storm is coming. I want all of you to... And Joe refused to do that. Joe used to go on the air and say, folks, if it's going to be something terrible, if it's going to be something that you need to be concerned about, I will tell you.
Yeah.
And that was what
I never had that experience. I mean, at all. I mean, I never had the experience of having been pressured to do that. I had such a good relationship with the newsrooms that I worked in. I'm not trying to sound conceited here, but you and I went through a time frame where you used to have to fight for every minute on the air, to where well, you were in a different place because they had the time constraints with the wheels that they did and all the rest of it. But I had you go from fighting to where weather was I was on 6 or 7 or 8 times on a newscast, and that was on a sunny day. But that said, I had a great relationship with the newsroom and with producers and news directors, but particularly assistant news director, my favorite assistant news director, John Hausman, and he let me do my thing, and if I went into the newsroom and said there was something that we really needed to be concerned about and I needed extra time, I would get it. But I was never told, hey, you need to, they never talked to me about my wattage, Joe.
Well, I used to sit when you were on Pix 11 on weekends.
Oh, you used to salivate and cry because I had all this time.
I used to sit on my couch with Renato, and I used to say to her, I said, why would they let me do that? This is that news story. Now, again, I'm not saying that I was upset with where I was working, but they used to restrict me. They used to have weather no more than 90 seconds. And meanwhile, I'm watching you on Pix 11. doing 5-minute soliloquies on the 50-50 low.
Well, that's
Yeah,
because, and I had it, and that's because of the fact that Channel 11 was so the management was so cheap that they only for the weekends they only had one staff reporter, and they would run all these canned stories, and the producer had to fill an hour newscast on Saturday nights and Sunday nights. So, if there's unless there was something truly major going on, she had all this time that she had to fill. So that came to me. She'd come to me all the time. It's you know something just died. Can you do 5 minutes? And I said, Noreen, whatever you need me to do. My paycheck is exactly the same whether I do 3 minutes or 30 seconds. The
right.
decimal point is in the same spot. But if you need me to do 5 minutes, I will do 5 minutes, and I did. And there were times where she was like really in a deep hole because you have to run the whole show has to finish at the top of the hour. You can't just stop at 10:47 and say, well, we don't have anything more to tell you, so that for the next 13 minutes we're just going to run black before the honeymooners come on at 11 o'clock. So yeah, I used to get a lot of, and I enjoyed it. Of course, there was a certain gas bag that I won't mention, but I do have bottles of champagne ready if on a certain day we're reading about such a gas bag. But I did have to deal with that particular evil.
the
But
90, the 90-second rule, and this was again the consultant's term. Joe shouldn't go any more than 90 seconds. There's no need for him to get into a long synopsis about it. People just want to know what the weather, and Joe will do it and get it. Meanwhile, they had invested in the brand new WSI computer system, and they were sold on buying that system because they were shown all the wonderful fly-ins and fly-outs and everything. Well, guess what? If you used one of those animations, they would take like 40 seconds just to do tonight's forecast. You'd fly in, and one by one, the numbers would pop up, and that's what they wanted to see. Because
yeah, see, and I found all that stuff so distracting.
but the management said, how come Joe isn't showing all of this wonderful stuff that we were sold on when we bought this system, whatever? And I'd say, you know why? I'm not supposed to go more than 90 seconds. That's according to the consultant. Then there was this clash between the consultant and management saying, well, what should we have him do? And, 1 week I'd be pulled one way and another week I'd be pulled the other way, back and forth, back and forth. It was crazy. Joe, I tried my best to get back into television for the last few years. Right now, I will say, thank God I wasn't successful because I don't want to go through any of that.
Oh, it would have been far worse. It's got at the very least, you'd be doing all this stuff that you really don't want to do,
Right.
and yeah, no, you'd be working with people that could be your grandchildren. You really want to do that?
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's a young man and young woman's game. So that's, you see anybody on the air, say for one, and I will not mention that name, but you are well aware who I'm referring to, Joe. There's one guy on television doing the weather who, let's put it this way, he stayed much too long at the fair.
Well, yes, most gas bags do. Anyhow, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is already run probably about 30 minutes longer than it should have.
Hey, look, we got 124 likes. Why don't we stay around till we get?
I know. The Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow, the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Get it and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board. It's also on the description to this video. And if you do make a purchase of this or anything else from the Tempest by WeatherFlow website, you use the coupon code I want a weather station. I want a weather station. And you will get
10 big percent off.
Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Long Island's largest rock salt source, which you want to remember when we get to the winter. But for now, think making your house look great, and also think about making sure you got what you need in case we get a tropical storm or hurricane. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And thanks tonight again to Ken Musillo and David Schwartz. I think I got everybody who hit the chat, super chat board tonight.
That's it.
Thank you for your lovely
Oh,
contributions.
real quick, because I just remembered this was another.
Oh, no.
So now you've never been to my cabin here in North Georgia. Maybe one day you and Mrs. Rayo can come, will come down. But I have a raised roof, and I would say, I don't know, 15-foot ceilings. So, and it's only 1,200 square feet. It's 2 bedrooms. It's perfect for me. It's wonderful. I have a guest room. Now, I hear a beep going off. All right, beep every like 60 seconds. I'm hearing a beep, and then I quickly realized that, oh, okay, that's the smoke alarm. That the battery needs to be
Batteries, yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
And I go into the guest room. Wouldn't you know, Joe? Would you not know that? And I have to just wonder what idiot decided to do this. They put the smoke alarm at the very top at the ceiling, which is like 15 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't stand on. I'd have to stand on the bed, put the ladder on the bed. Okay.
You don't want to do that.
And I'm not going to do that, clearly. But I just thought it was funny. You got a whole room, and you could have put that smoke alarm where it's got to be accessible to change the battery. You stick it all the way up. But thank God I called my neighbor, and he had an 8-foot ladder, and he had it was the alarm itself was about 12 and a half, 13 feet up. So he was able to get it and take it down. So I have to get a new smoke alarm because I'm not going to want to change that battery in a couple of years. I don't want to go through that again. But I just thought it was one of those moments where you wonder, was the person thinking when they did this that, oh, if I put the smoke alarm there, I'm going to need to go up, I'm going to need to get an extra long ladder to go up and change the battery. But I guess not.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Bernard and I ever come down to visit you, I will bring along in my car, just for you, the little giant ladder, which extends out to something like 15 or 17 feet. And I use this monstrosity to put up my Christmas lights every year. And each year when I climb that monstrosity, I know I'm putting my life on the line because I'm always saying to myself, the lock one of these days is going to get loose or something like that. And all of a sudden,
I had one of those ladders when I lived on Long Island.
Yeah.
But I don't have one here. But yeah. Maybe one day you will come down. If you do, I'll take you to Grandpa. Take you to Grandpa Mim's distillery, where it's illegal to sell alcohol all here. They've got wine in the supermarkets, but there's no liquor stores. If I want to buy liquor, I got to go into North Carolina, or I have to go down to the Fannin County, the next county over. This is a dry county, okay? Because they do have. It's legal to make and sell moonshine. So I'll take you to Grandpa Mim's distillery, amongst other wonderful places here between Hooterville and Pixley.
All right, we were 2 minutes shy of 9 o'clock. Time to end this. We won't have Riller Jeopardy tonight.
No, we'll do it tomorrow. And actually, the extension. We got one more tip jar hit, Joe. Raymond Goldbolt. Yeah. Raymond, you got to send me how to pronounce your last name, okay? Gilboilt, whatever. It says gas money for Joe and coffee money. Thank you so much for hitting the tip jar. Seriously, thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 for a shorter show. Bye.
Yeah. Night.